I'm Chris.
And I'm Kylie. And this is Redefining Resilience,
where we explore what it means to build a resilient lifestyle
so you can thrive in any and every situation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about time management.
So, time management is all about how we execute the plan. We talked about having a plan in our last episode. So this is really a continuation of executing the plan. First thing I will say about time management, and this goes against all the time management books out there, I think, that tout that their system is the best. There is no one-size-fits-all strategy when it comes to time management and prioritization. It's trial and error and figuring out what works for you. And I say that because I have a neurospicy brain.
Neurospicy?
Yeah. ADHD. And so time management for me personally has always been a huge struggle. Inability to focus is what comes with ADHD, and I like to think of it as a hyper-focus sensitivity. Meaning, if I'm really interested in something, I will hyper-focus on it, but if I'm not really interested in it, I have to have systems in place to help me get through it.
Yeah.
So what works for me may not work for Chris, and what works for Chris may not work for me, and what works for us may not work for any of you.
So it's the same thing as a diet program. You got to be able to take some personal responsibility here and say, yes, this time management book might have been phenomenal for my boss or my mentor or my friend, but it might not be perfect for you. So one of the coolest things I see is people that are really, really successful take a program or a plan and morph it into what works for them. There's a lot of things crossed out and then other things written in, or, hey, this didn't work for me, but that's okay that this didn't work for me. It's not a rigid plan. I need to make it to where it's liquid for me. And they change it based on the needs they have. So like even our training structures that I have for some of my clients, they're like, well, I didn't like that, but I do this because it works the same muscle group and I enjoy it. Awesome. Go for it. That's fantastic. I don't really care because the outcome's what we're looking for. If your planning booklet or whatever you purchased is very rigid and hard for you to understand or hard for you to get behind, it's not because you have some learning deficiency. It's because it just doesn't work for you, and that's okay. We need to give ourselves enough grace to understand we are different than other people, and that's a good thing.
Well, and there's more than one way to skin a cat, I think is the phrase.
Yeah, it's true.
And if you look at time management as a science experiment, that is the best way I can describe the whole process. I mean, and that's life too in general. I think life is one big science experiment. But if you look at time management specifically as like, okay, this is a build, measure, learn process. One, we have to build the theory, measure it, right? Test something, measure the effectiveness of it, learn from that, and then build another theory. So if I say, okay, I'm going to habit stack, and when I take my lunch break, I'm also going to take a 30-minute walk. So I'm going to carve out 1-hour lunch breaks every day so that I get a little bit of movement, and I also take a break from my desk and go eat lunch.
You have to be realistic about those time frames too. Like, I can't, when I worked at the bank, there was no way I was taking a 30-minute walk. Most of the time I was in a suit. I'm not walking around in a suit outside in the heat. That's just not could not be part of my day. So I had to understand that the time that I was at the bank was focused on the bank, and the things I needed to get done, I could plan accordingly based on the time frames that were acceptable and logical. I wasn't going to try to cram 58 different things into a Monday morning because that just wasn't logical. If I looked at actual data from what happens during the week, my Monday mornings were full of client interactions. So I needed to manage my time based on reality. And I also understand that you can't, some people do, wake up at 4 a.m. and hit the gym every day. If you can do that, awesome. I did that for a couple of years. I'll never do that now. I love my sleep. But I also understand that the sacrifice of not doing it at 4 a.m. forces me to put that into my schedule during the day, and it's not logical every day.
Well, and everything is a trade-off. Everything is a trade-off. The book Essentialism talks about this. Highly recommend the book. It's phenomenal. But it talks about everything being a trade-off. So if, let's say, you have to focus on work between the hours of 8 and 5, that means that one of your constraints to finding time to work out is that it has to be before 8 a.m. and it has to be after 5 p.m. Those are constraints, right? And in any experiment, you have constraints.
Yeah. Yeah. Things you can't change.
So that means that we either have to get our workout in the morning, or we have to get our workout in the evening. And if you know you have to drop the kids off at school in the morning, then you need to coordinate with your spouse so that you can take an evening workout class or whatever the case may be, right, for you specifically. But those are the arrangements that you have to be able to make in order to get what you want out of the system, out of your schedule, out of your body, out of your variables, right, involved in this experiment. So if we think about different approaches to time management, there's lots of books out there. There's lots of systems. There's lots of templates. There's lots of everything. There's no shortage of resources when it comes to time management. Biggest thing you have to do when it comes to figuring out what works to you is committing to figuring out what works for you.
You have to pull the personal data. What actually is going on when you go to the gym, or you go get your nails done, or you get your hair done, or you drop the kids off at school? You can't give yourself the minimum time frame all the time for everything to work out perfectly. Like, I know when my oldest daughter got her hair done, it took 3 fucking hours. Like, I think you were planning on what, an hour and a half, 2 hours max, turns into 3 hours. Time management is just understanding that there are variables out there that you are part of. It is understanding there are variables out there you can't control. So give yourself some cushion.
Well, and that's where being fluid in the process is so important. I mean, you think about it, and I have one client specifically that is fantastic at time management. Like, he executes his process week over week. And on the weeks where he maybe isn't at 100%, let's say he dips down into 80% because he had to travel, he had a work trip 2 days out of the week, he'll get really frustrated because it didn't go according to plan, or it wasn't as effective and efficient as he normally is. But part of the process is realizing that not every week is going to get executed at 100%.
But hell, if you execute 52 weeks in a row at 80%, you're rocking and rolling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you think about it, like, you are also a human. And so you're not invincible. You're not a robot. You can't reliably perform at 100% every single day, because that's not how we're built as humans. And then there's shit that pops up, right? You might get sick. You might get COVID. I remember when I had COVID, I was like down for the count, but I still powered through meetings. I did a shitty job. I mean, it was brutal. But it took me down, and I was, trying to execute at like maybe 20% and feeling like an utter failure, instead of giving myself the grace I needed to just take a rest, recover, and bounce right back into it as quickly as I possibly could. And because our systems are human, right, this is going to be a part of the process. So recognize that when you fall off of the efficiency get right back on it as soon as you possibly can. It doesn't necessarily mean that you failed and you suck and time management isn't for you. It just means, hey, this is part of the process. I'm going to fail more times than I'm going to succeed at the start of it. And then once you failed so many times, you have all that data on what's causing you to fail, and you can start to make some small changes.
Either that, or you can say, maybe this just isn't a pattern that is implementable for me. When I fell off the 4 o'clock a.m. workouts, my second daughter had just been born, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. Instead of 4 a.m. workouts a week, I was getting one in, and then I was upset with myself because I wasn't getting the 3 other ones in. Well, things changed. Time changed. I had another human to take care of. There was an infant.
It was a big variable change.
Exactly. So what I had to do was look at the failures, which are just as beneficial as the successes. So make that very clear. Failure is not only a part of it, it is beneficial. It has to happen because it's just like you said, Kylie, data to prove to yourself and the system what's going on. It's just feedback from the inputs. And if the failure is consistent, let's take a step back. Let's look at what we're planning, what time we're giving to it, what time we've put it in our calendar, and what expectations we have for that. And we rearrange it. Maybe it's not 4 a.m. workouts anymore. Maybe it's sleep in, get the rest that you can get the kiddos where they need to go, dressed and fed in the morning, and then you go get a workout in later in the afternoon. Maybe it's 4 a.m. to 5 p.m. workouts. Like that's an okay switch. But that's part of the liquidity you have to have with yourself.
Yep. So this was a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I decided that I was going to make it my mission to get very good at time management because the ADHD was really a struggle for me and I was having a hard time and I just was sick of it. So I got fed up. I hired a coach to help me with this, and she recommended that I get on the Full Focus planner system. And if you're not familiar with this is the Michael Hyatt system. He wrote a book, Free to Focus, and I read the book. I got the planner. I was doing my thing. It was terrible the first 3 months I tried it. There's a daily planner page for each day of the week. I maybe had filled out about a fourth of them. So 75% of that planner was wasted. And I looked at that and I was like, okay, I have two choices at this juncture. I can continue and maybe set a goal for myself to use 50% of the pages so that I can get a little bit better at this, or I can quit and end up right back where I was. So I continued. I used this system very consistently for a year. I had the most successful, productive year of my life and realized, okay, this does work for me, but I need to make some changes to it because I didn't love all of the components in it. And then they switched up the templates and changed it. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do this my way. And I've learned enough in the 2 years of using this system. I want to make this my own. And so I made some adjustments, created my own templates, and I now have all my clients using this system. And the main component of this, and you can use this is free. You don't have to buy the planner. You don't have to hire me as a coach. The main component of this system is to focus on the big three. So this is where it gets very tactical. Each week on Sunday, I plan out what are my top 3 priorities for the week. What are the 3 most important things I need to get done based off of my vision, based off of the goals I've set for myself? What are the 3 most important things that have to get done this week? And if I do these 3 things, it will be considered a successful week. Now, where it gets even more tactical, each day, when you start your day, define what are the most important 3 things that you need to get done that day. So we have a weekly big 3 and we have a daily big 3. That's it. Like, that's the gist of the system. I've added in a few more components like that incorporate gratitude and visualization and some mindfulness, but those are bonus points. If you can master executing the big 3 on a weekly and a daily basis, you will be sitting pretty by the end of the year. Promise you, because you're adding some intentionality into your week and into your day that wouldn't have otherwise been there. This allows you to determine what your top priorities are, because every time someone emails you or slacks you a message or shoots you a text message or asks you to help solve this problem, you're responding to their priorities.
I love that. It's true, though. If somebody shoots you an email and says, I need XYZ done, they need XYZ done.
For themselves.
Yeah.
Or to advance their initiatives.
Exactly. So if you can understand that you're playing your game to finish your big 3 daily and weekly, and the other priorities from other people are a part of outside of the big 3, it's a little easier to focus on what you need to get done and prioritize the 3 things. And it's not a list of 100 either. That's where I think we get bogged down. It's in the fitness world and our relationships and all these other things, every aspect of life, really. I need to do 900 things. Okay, well, you might have to get 900 things done. Let's just say worst case scenario, these 900 things need to get done. You can still break that down into 3 things a day and hit 900 really fast.
Well, if you think about that, if you're getting your 3 most important things done 7 days a week, that's 21 really important things that you've done each week. And just doing some simple math there, 21 times 52 weeks in a year.
It's 1,092 things.
Yeah.
Let's say that again. 21 things a week, right?
Yep.
Times 52 weeks. That's 1,092. That's where I feel like we really have the biggest misstep here. Is a year is not a long time.
It's really not. We're already halfway through the year. It's June of 2024, and half the year is already gone.
Yeah. I mean, we're just not. We think we have a lot of time in front of us, or like time is going to stretch on forever, and we'll get it later. The problem is you just don't, and it goes by super quick. I remember I signed up for this competition, or got to nationals a couple months ago. I'm like, fuck it, whatever. I have time to rest a little bit. It's in 4 days, 5 days. It's like it is right around the corner. I feel like everything is always right around the corner. Mm-hmm. Once you have it planned out ahead of time and you start saying, I want to equal, or I want to achieve X, and you reverse engineer it down to your daily, weekly 3s, you go, okay, and now I see how every day is beneficial. Now I see how every day compounds to the ultimate goal. And then how that goal equals another goal and equals another goal that cumulatively equal my vision. That makes sense, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to understand how time management works and how it correlates with planning and how both of those correlate with vision. If you don't have a vision, it's going to be very hard, very, very hard to plan. And if you don't plan, and your time management is going to go out the window because everything is going to be important. And if everything's important, nothing's important.
Exactly. Well, and just to give you some reassurance, although half the year is already gone, there is still a half a year left, which leaves you the opportunity to get 500 and some really important things done.
It's 546.
Yeah.
Actually.
Mental math was pretty close. So you have the opportunity to get 546 really important things done.
I don't care if you got a week left. There's going to be another year. There always is. The world keeps spinning. So what do you want to do? Do you want to wait till next year or the next year or the next year? Or do you want to say, okay, I want to be better tomorrow and way better next month and unrecognizable next year? You have the power to do that, but you have to be intentional. You have to understand that your time is valuable because nobody's going to want it like you do. Nobody. Your boss, as great of a guy or gal that she might be, is never going to want your life to be as great as you want your life to be, because they're focused on their life being great. And it's not that anybody's selfish or mean or doesn't care about you. It's that you have to care about you. If you don't care about you, nobody's going to. So take control of your life, take control of your time, understand that you have to be intentional, and get excited about it. You can literally do anything. I mean, there are people that have done crazy things because they just decided they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. So my second recommendation, besides the big three, right? That was our first one. That was a biggie. Second thing is write it down. So our head is swirling constantly with all the things that we have to do. If you're not capturing those to-do items in a list somewhere, they're going to constantly be swirling around in your head. This is how anxiety happens. We worry about the future. So just write it down, get it out of your head, and now you don't have to think about it anymore. The next step after writing it down is to plan it. Put it in your calendar. Designate a time that you are going to tackle it so you know, I don't have to worry about this anymore because I know exactly when it's going to get done.
The cool part about writing it down is you can then divide it into groups. You can divide it into habits, projects, and to-dos. Your habits are things that just have to happen on a daily basis. You have to take care of yourself, and you have to eat. You have to sleep. Those things you should schedule and should be part of your time management process. I know both you and I have lunches scheduled. I have 5 meals scheduled every day through my calendar for the rest of the time that I own a calendar, because I have to make sure that happens.
The other thing with habits is that they have to be going on in the background with consistency. So a lot of times we look at some of our habit, like to-do items, as an extra thing or like something that takes up our energy. It really can't take up our energy, because if it's something that we have to do on an ongoing basis, like think of laundry, for example. Does it make sense for me to stress out about getting the laundry done on a consistent basis? Because it's never going away.
As long as you wear clothes, you're going to do laundry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I cannot stress about the habitual to-do items that I have to tackle on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Like, I can't stress out about those things. I have to know that 1, they're planned, and 2, I don't have to think about it. They're just going to happen because I've set aside time. I've carved out time in my calendar. It's when we don't that they become stressful. You know you have to get your expenses done. Let's say you have to send an expense report every month. You have to do that every month. So why would you not carve out time in your calendar, bake that into your schedule on a recurring basis, because you know you have to do that every month? If I know I have to do laundry every single week, why don't I make Sunday my laundry day? If I know that I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, let me schedule in Monday, Wednesday, Friday gym time. If I know I need to have recurring meetings with my teammates on a weekly basis, why am I scheduling those last minute every single week? If I have to have consistent conversations with anyone on my team, those are going to be scheduled and baked into the plan so that I don't ever have to think about, oh yeah, I really should have scheduled that one-on-one meeting. Or, yeah, we haven't met in 2 months, but we talk pretty regularly, so it's not a big deal. There's a difference between working on the business and working in the business.
I love that. Yes, there is. Huge difference.
Working in the business is your habitual activities. Working on the business segues into the projects that Chris mentioned. So working on the business is usually more project-based tasks. They're bigger initiatives and typically not time sensitive, but rather they're executed over the long term. So working on the business is, how do we make this better? Let's think strategically. Let's get out of the day-to-day weeds and think bigger picture. Well, I'm not ever going to be able to do that if I can't get out of the weeds. If my day-to-day is so stressful that I can't even think about how I could possibly make this better, that's a sign that you need to get out of the weeds.
Well, that and you've done something to put so much stress on yourself every second of the day that you can't make clear decisions. So you need to do a real big inventory. What's going on? What's happening? What's the stress level coming from? What control do I have over these stressors? And what is an absolute necessity? Because there are jobs out there. My dad had one of them where he worked all the time. I mean, he was working 100 hours a week, it felt like. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was more. And he literally was consumed with work for years. But that's what the job required. But if you look at how people that are in that position function and function well, they become very meticulous with their time. Because work takes up so much time and the projects and to-dos at work are so massive that if they aren't planned, if they aren't scheduled, then they become the monsters that are losing it over a subway order or something like that, or a messy room, as opposed to the people that are structured enough to understand, okay, work is at work. I'm done with the things that I needed to do because I planned ahead and I scheduled accordingly.
So projects, if you think about it, are these bigger items. So at Odyssey Resilience, we are opening up an office.
What?
Yeah, we're going to have a physical office space in 2 weeks.
So pumped.
But this is a huge fucking project. Like, this is going to require a lot of our time and attention. So we have to build that into our schedule and start planning now. It's 2 weeks from now, but we have to start executing on it immediately. Once we get access to the space, it's like, all right, how quickly can we get this up and running so that we can start using it and making it profitable?
But this is an amalgamation of probably a year of planning.
Absolutely.
Or more. We knew what we wanted. We knew where we needed to eventually go. And once we found the space, it was like, cool, this is just part of the plan and it's falling into place. That's just a step we need to take. So then now, because we've planned ahead, we have the things in place. We're just now executing. We're not stuck going, oh my God, now we're here. What do? We already know what's going to happen when we get there.
Yeah. I will give a quick shout out to Brittany, my CPA, because I think she does this so well. As soon as I submitted my 2023 taxes, she was already sending me calendar invites for the next year's quarterly tax planning sessions. And her email literally said, I know we just did last year's taxes, but time to start planning for the next one. And it was like, shit, you're right, because it's going to sneak up on us before we know it. And if we're not doing this proactively, we're going to be frantically scurrying around come January of next year. So that's a prime example of something that we can plan for. It's a project. It's not ongoing, but it does require very concentrated attention at a specific point in the year, and we can anticipate it. Tax day is the same day every single year. It's not changing. So those are the things that are great examples of projects. The third thing that Chris mentioned was to-dos. These are tasks that pop up and usually have to be addressed in a timely manner. So examples can be emails that come through, problem-solving issues that pop up, any kind of follow-ups that you have to do after meetings. Let's say you're going to a birthday party and you need to buy a birthday gift. That's a to-do. Booking your travel arrangements. Some of these to-do items can be delegated if you have that luxury. And then the others, you just have to prioritize time to do them. They have to just get done. So between the three, habits, projects, and to-dos, all of these things can be planned for the most part. So as a follow-up item from this podcast episode, write down all your habits. Write down the projects that you have pending or that you'd like to prioritize in the near future. And then anytime you have to-dos that pop up, write those down too. Capture all of this in a list. Start getting this stuff into your calendar as much as you possibly can. Utilize your calendar, whether you use a paper one or an electronic calendar. I think most of us use an electronic calendar these days because I need the notifications to tell me what my next move is. Super helpful for me. But whatever your method is, stick with it and use that system to help you manage your time effectively so that you're constantly knocking out those big threes on a regular basis and you're happy with how much productivity you're able to execute on in a day. And one thing that we'll leave you with, if it's predictable, it's plannable. Just remember the 80-20 rule. Control the 80% at 100% level. So the only uncertainty you have to deal with is the 20%.
I absolutely love control the 80% at 100%. I want that tattooed on my body. I love that.
So putting this all into practice, I think it might be helpful to share just an example of how we prep for travel. We just spent a week in Montana and we're turning around 4 days later and heading to Denver because Chris is competing at Strongman Nationals.
Heck yeah.
Whoop, whoop. But a few things that we've talked about are not just things that we talk about in theory. We put them into practice, and it's a constant evolution of getting better and better. So each trip we take, we're a little bit more planned out, a little bit better. We recently discovered that we can bring our Yeti full of food, just can't be liquid if you plan on carrying it on, but we can bring our cooler and prep food in advance for our travel. So when you travel, a lot of times, I mean, I know this is true for me, when I eat out a lot, my stomach just is in turmoil because I'm off my regular diet and I'm not controlling the ingredients that are used or how the food is prepared. So one of the things that we try to do when we travel is minimize the amount that we have to eat out. Not because we don't want to eat out. We love eating out. If I could eat out every meal, I sure would. But it's not smart or fiscally responsible. So we try to prep our breakfasts and our lunches as much as we possibly can. And then the only meal we eat out is typically dinner. And even sometimes then we'll prepare food. If we have a kitchen when we're traveling, we'll prepare food and make dinners at home too, just like we normally would if we were at home. So this last trip, we prepped all of our food, carried it on, and then we're able to have our consistent meal plans while on vacation. And we're going to do the same thing for this next trip in Denver.
It just is a part of the 80% that we can control. So if we can control what we're putting in our bodies, we can assume the same outcome every time and we don't have to worry about it. So especially we're pretty active, so we wanted to spend a lot of the time outside when we were in Montana. She was running a Spartan race, which was phenomenal. That's a whole nother episode. And we wanted to hike. We wanted to be outside. During the Strongman, we want to go do things before and after. The issue with a lot of travel and unplanned aspects of travel is that you don't know like you're saying, the ingredients. It's cooked from a different area. The food is completely different every time. Even if it's just beef and rice like I eat, it's beef from a different place and rice from a different place. That's going to affect my body differently. I'm more worried about outcome than I am input. Input is just a way to get the outcome that I want. And if I don't want to perform at the heightened level, if I want to experience things to the fullest physically, I need to make sure what's going in my body is as regulated as possible.
One thing I was going to say, if you think about it too, if Chris is competing on Saturday in nationals, we can't take any chances that he's going to eat something that's going to screw up his stomach right before he competes. It's literally the worst case scenario. So if you think about it, the trade-off, us not prepping and bringing our own food is more risky than us eating out a bunch of times right before he goes to compete.
Well, it's all a matter of what you want out of this. Like, do you want to be so focused on the food and the little bit of dopamine you get from going to a cool new restaurant, or do you want to go experience life and the things outside? Like, we want to experience life. We want to go do the things that we can do at the highest level we can do them. We went on a hike that lasted a couple hours, Glacier Park.
Yeah.
Phenomenal hike.
Oh, yeah.
But everything was prepped. Everything was ready. We just had to execute. Mm-hmm. That's where I think we miss with so many experiences, is we spend so much time trying to put pieces together and we don't execute. The planning allows you to execute, get shit done, go experience it, perform at the best level.
Well, and I also want to call out the fact that us having an awesome experience on that hike was also because we used our resources. My friend Christine lives in Montana, gave us the best advice possible and said, hey, you're going to want hiking poles for your hike in Glacier. Best advice we could have ever gotten, because those hiking poles were awesome on that hike. It made us feel like we were flying through the woods. We were going so fast because it took a little bit of pressure off of our bodies and made the hike just a little bit easier. But one, it required me reaching out to somebody and asking, hey, how should I prepare for this? Got the advice, purchased the hiking poles on Amazon, right? 2 days later, they're at our doorstep. And we packed them, got everything ready to go, right? Packed a cooler that day. And we had everything ready to make that such a great experience. We literally had nothing to worry about. There was no, oh, well, we have to go figure out where to get sandwiches or figure out what to do with this. And, the other thing, I've been avoiding gluten. And so I didn't want to have to find a restaurant that's going to cater to me being gluten-free and make the whole experience frustrating. I just brought gluten-free bread.
Yeah.
I bought and brought the things that I normally have on a regular basis so that I wasn't having to worry about, where am I going to find my special food, and is this going to be the thing that occupies my brain space on vacation? Absolutely not. I came prepared. But it was awesome. And that level of preparation is what makes experiences so much better.
Well, if you look at your Spartan race and this competition coming up, there's months and months and months of prep for this. I mean, you can sign up for anything and show up, right? If I signed up for this and showed up, I would get my ass handed to me. If you didn't do any prep for your Spartan race and showed up, I mean, you would have done a horrible job because you're not prepared. We had to have the time set aside every day. Part of our big 3 for the week was getting those workouts in, because the outcome was a phenomenal experience at the Spartan race. I'm more excited than I am. I'm not nervous at all. I'm just pumped because I know my capability because of the time I spent in the gym beforehand. I'm just ready to do it. I'm ready to throw some iron around.
Mm-hmm. And we made a list of things we needed to pack on our way home from Montana. I was already thinking about what we needed to get ahead on for this next trip. So nothing happens reactively. Everything is done proactively that I can possibly think of. I think about, okay, day 1, what are we going to need when we get there? Day 2, what are we going to need when we get there? Day 3, when we leave, what are we going to need in order to leave and get through that successfully? How can I plan this out? How can, the logistics of everything unfold effectively? If I have to make calls, am I going to be in the hotel room or am I going to be on the road? Like, things like that, you can think through in advance so that you have good outcomes when it comes time to execute. And shit's always going to hit the fan. Something is always going to go wrong. There's always going to be something that doesn't go exactly according to plan. But because you had a plan in the first place, you're much more easily able to adapt when the situation calls for flexibility.
Well, because you still have a plan in place. Yeah. If you have to if there's 100 items on your list or 10 items on your list for your vacay or your day at work, and one of the 10 doesn't go according to plan, you still have 9 things in order. Hell, even if it's 50-50, 5 things go awry, you still got 5 things done on your plan. You were still prepared. You can get yourself back in line. The problem with the issue of not planning and not having the time management protocol in place for the things that you're planning to do is that when something happens that's uncontrolled, it wipes out the rest of the day. The rest of the day is now ruined because you focus on the one thing you couldn't accomplish, but could have accomplished 15 other great things that day or one other awesome one.
So our challenge to you, share with us your big 3.
Yes, I would love that.
Share it on social media. Send us a message. Send us a text if you've got our numbers. Doesn't matter. Just get a hold of us. Let us know what your big 3 are for the week. And that this was effective in helping you level up your time management skills just a little bit more.
Put your big 3 on Instagram and tag us.
Or LinkedIn, whatever social media you're on.
Let us know that you're planning, and we'll follow up.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it.
Me too. Happy planning. Thanks for listening to Redefining Resilience.
To learn more about building your mental and physical readiness, check out odysseyresilience.org.
And follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok.